delighted to be able to talk about the sport. We've had two good, constructive days at Congress, but look, we're all here for the World Championships. We're all athletics fans, and we're hugely excited, and me particularly, to be back in the Olympic Stadium. That's in a way where the journey started, and it was the sort of turning point, the crossroads in British sporting history. So, very excited to be here. We're all athletics fans. Every opportunity that we get to see the world's best of their generation competing in your own backyard in a stadium that is extraordinary is an extraordinary and exciting moment. And you've probably heard me say this before, but if you look at the Games, you have the highest level of qualification standards. You have the largest number of athletes attending. You have the greatest number of tickets sold, and that's a terrific tribute to the work of the organising committee. And simply put, they are going to be the biggest World Championships that we've ever had. And the excitement amongst the crowds, the expectation, the way that people have started to absorb the fact that the third largest sporting event is coming to these shores, and 5 years after we celebrated some of the most extraordinary moments in international track and field. And it's back here, and I'm delighted that this will again sow the seeds for another generation of legacy stories and extraordinary moments. So from the 100-metre preliminary rounds tomorrow morning, right the way through to 9:15 on the 13th of August, Ed, which I think is the 4x400 metre relays. I don't think there's any of us that will want to miss a moment of that spectacular sport in the stadium. So we're here, we're athletics fans, and we're getting it underway.
Good. Thank you, Seb. The IAAF have been fantastic partners for us in the 6 years it's taken us to get ready for what's going to start in 24 hours' time. So thank you to you and your council and all your colleagues for that collaboration, which has been great. When I look at it, we've just nibbled over 700,000 tickets sold now. I think the previous highest was just over 400,000 for World Championships. The stadium will have more than 50,000 paying fans in there, most, in fact, pretty much all sessions. And the great thing for me is there's 48 gold medal events. There are no nailed-on favourites in any of those 48 events. So you've got genuine sporting jeopardy in the world's greatest athletics stadium in front of a packed audience of fans. So the uncertainty, the excitement, for me, is going to be a very potent cocktail, and we're really looking forward to it with only a day to go. Thank you.
So we'll just open up to Q&A. Usual, hand up. Please say where you're from and your name, and we'll start. It's very bright light, but I think that looks like Mark. It is. Well done. Okay.
As you're in French, if you have a translation? Because French is the official language of IAAF.
We have two official languages, English and French, Mark.
Ready?
Bienvenue à Londres.
Merci bien, thank you very much. Ma question, Seb, est de savoir quelle est votre réaction personnelle aux propos d'excuses présentés par le président de la Fédération russe. What's your reaction after the apologies from the president of the Russian Federation?
I thought it was a very candid response today, a very candid presentation. And yes, I think the whole council, I know the whole Congress, was pleased to recognise that the Russian Federation recognise themselves that they have been through some pretty torrid times, that they are doing everything they possibly can to make sure that the Federation itself is re-engineered, that they're attempting the hard yards of changing the culture around coaching systems and endemic systems that have served very badly the athletes. And again, I was pleased that RUSAF accepted, because of course the criteria for reintroduction was agreed with them as well, that we follow process, and that the Congress today supported the recommendations of the Council through Runa Anderson's task force. So I thought it was a very constructive day. And I think clearly progress is being made, but the Council, through the recommendations of the task force, concluded that this was not the moment to reinstate Russia, but we need to make sure that we do everything over the next few months to try and normalise this situation. The guiding principle has always been that we wanted to separate the clean athletes from the tainted system, and we have 19 neutral athletes here. And that has been the case throughout the year, because we've had them in Bydgoszcz, we've had them in Grosseto, they were in Nairobi at the under-18s where 2 medals were won. And I was very pleased to hear that recognition, but it still leaves us with some work to do.
Okay, so I can see, I think it's Matt Slater and then Duncan in front.
Thanks very much. Matt Slater from the Press Association. Just to follow up on that, was that the type of apology, the type of acknowledgement that you want to hear, that should satisfy one of the outstanding criteria? Was that enough?
I think it was recognition. It is an element of the criteria. It will ultimately be for the task force to decide that, because there's no point in having created the task force, the independent process. They will be the judge of that. And I think it is also important to remember that our relationship in terms of the reinstatement is directly with RUSAC, the Russian Federation. So that is important that that was communicated to the International Federation and the 200 or so countries that were there listening to the presentation from Dmitry Slatkin, the Russian Federation President, followed by the observations of Runa Anderson from the task force.
So Duncan McKay inside the Games. Were you surprised that so many countries voted against the Council recommendation, and were you especially surprised that Jamaica yet again voted against one of your reforms?
I think that's a question you should ask the Jamaican Federation. That's not for me to answer. But actually, I think some 86–87% supported the retention of the ban. And look, I was very clear with the Council. I was very clear in today's Congress that we are making progress, that this is a proper way to do it, that we've taken a tough decision and we need to see it through. And there were those that, there were those that didn't agree with the process that we adopted. But I genuinely believe that this progress that we've witnessed today and the presentation that we heard from the Russian Federation would probably not have happened had we not gone down that road.
Okay, gentlemen. Yep, thank you.
I put my question in French. Je m'appelle Yahya Sidi du magazine Perspective Med du Maroc. Ma seule et unique question, Monsieur le Président de l'IAAF, de savoir précisément son point de vue personnel sur la proposition de l'Union européenne d'athlétisme concernant l'annulation des records d'Europe.
We give the European Union quite a lot of powers in this country, or ascribe them, but it wasn't the European Union, it's the European Athletics Association that has put a proposal through from the European Association. Look, there is a great deal of agreement around 2 or 3 concepts that the European Council have put forward. First of all, that we need to do more in terms of storage of samples, that we need the ability to go back 10 years to test that sample for ratification, that we need world records to be set, or records, European records generally to be set in stadiums where there's proper metrology, you have grade A timekeepers and officials. This is all perfectly sensible and agreed upon. It was always going to be the challenge to decide how to deal with existing and historic records. And I think the European Association were right to decide they needed to do more work on that. They will bring that proposal, as they're entirely entitled to the Council. It will probably come back before the end of the year, but again, it will depend a lot on when they achieve that. But I think there is also another guiding principle, that we have to be clear, and particularly in some women's events, that there are records on the books that I believe are an inhibitor to young girls wanting to take up our sport. It is possible for some girls to look at those distances and events and think, well, I can possibly compete for my country, I might even get to a major championships, I might even win titles. But I'm never, under normal circumstances, going to get close to those world records. And I think that is probably what prompted the debate. And it's not a new debate, it's a debate that, you know, I'm probably older and been involved in the sport for a lot longer than anybody, you know, around. But this is a debate that we were having 25 years ago. And I think it was articulated by the European Association. So we will see where they get to. And for that, of course, to become a global recommendation, it will have to go through the Council.
Okay, gentleman behind the camera. No, gentleman behind the camera.
Teemu Tammenehto from the Finnish YLE, for Mr. Coe and maybe others as well, in English, of course. As you said, the biggest world champs are about to begin here in London. There's been 2 terrorist attacks here this year. What can you say about the security of the races?
Yes, I'll just make a quick observation and then I think hand to the Chief Executive or the Chairman. Look, it is really important, of course, that security is of the highest priority. You know, we went through the London years, and there was hardly a day that went by without security in one way or another being reviewed, monitored. You know, the delivery of a security program is incremental and sequential. I think we're all pretty proud that we live and work in a city that has dealt with these problems. We have dealt with them from time to time, and we have dealt with them over generations. All I can say, having known the London years and certainly having had conversations recently, that everything will be done that is humanly possible to make these a safe and secure event. There is the twin challenge, of course, and that is not forgetting that we are here to celebrate extraordinary humanity in sport, and we don't want people feeling that they're coming to a lockdown stadium, a lockdown park, or even a lockdown city. But Niels or Ed?
We've had a very substantial police presence embedded in our local organising community for many months now. I attended the last tabletop exercise in which they were going through various scenarios ahead of the Para Athletics World Championships, which we had last month. And there were lots of people in the room, many of them former policemen and women, many of them current policemen and women, and we've worked clearly closely with all the other relevant authorities in the city and central government. And the message is exactly as Seb has said. We do all that's humanly possible, but we want people to come to be aware of risk, but not to be afraid. And if I can turn it to a positive, the city has had some terrible blows in the course of this year. But now is an amazing opportunity for us to come together with over 200 nations represented on the track and in the field, but I would say at least that number represented in the stands. This is probably the most cosmopolitan city in the world. Vibrant, multicultural, multinational, and a joyous place to live and work, as I do. And I would like to see these championships be an incredible celebration of the spirit of humanity and the collaborative spirit in which people live in this great city. So we've done all we can, we've worked with all the relevant authorities, and let's remember, they don't just deal with World Athletics Championships, they're dealing with major events all the time, not just in Stratford and in that stadium, but across London, not just sporting events, but all sorts of events, and they had great experience. So I have huge trust and faith in them, but I would encourage anyone to come, to enjoy themselves, to be aware, but not to be afraid.
Okay, yes. Nick, and then we'll go to the lady at the back.
Hi, Nick Butler from Inside for Games. Seb, are you expecting to discuss your somewhat differing responses to the Russian doping problems with the IOC Executive Board in your meeting tomorrow? And how do you expect that to go? And will you also discuss cross-country possibly coming onto the Winter Olympics?
Well, first of all, I'm not aware that it's on the agenda. I mean, if it's raised, then we will clearly identify the position. I know the IOC know where we stand on this. So no, it's not on the agenda tomorrow. I think the agenda is quite a fulsome one. And of course, we are the only international sports federation that meets the executive board at our World Championships, and that has to be a good thing.
Okay, lady with her hand up, thank you.
Florence Lloyd-Hughes from SportCow. I just had a question about London possibly hosting the championships again. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion following the World Paralympics Championships about London possibly hosting those championships again. So I was wondering if it would ever return to London in the near future.
Well, I'll talk about the World Para-Athletics. As you will have seen and heard, the athletes themselves had never had a championships experience like it. Huge crowds, great conditions, wonderful service to the athletes in terms of transport, accommodation, all the logistics, and they'd love to be back. And I know that UK Athletics and the British Paralympic Association would love to bring the championships back to that stadium in 2 years' time. Would London ever want to host these championships again? I bet it would, but I should think the IAAF has got other plans, because these are global championships and they need to be rotated around the world in great cities, great stadia, in front of great crowds. When it comes to the World Para-Athletics Championships, in many ways, the offer to come back is there because the IPC has a need. I don't see the IAAF having that need. It's got two great hosts coming up in Doha and Eugene, and it'll move the circus on from there. Would London want to use this stadium for major championships of all sorts? Absolutely. So would the sport like to see European championships in the stadium? Yes. Would it want to see Commonwealth Games hosted in London? Yes. Are there other major athletics events to bring to the stadium? Yes, because let's remember there's a 50-year lease that UK Athletics has in the greatest athletic stadium in the world, and we want to use that. So I'm moving on, but UK Athletics wants to move that, use that to showcase this sport, to grow it, to invest in it, and to invest in a future fan base. We had 100,000 school children come to the World Para-Athletics Championships, and that's 100,000 fans for the future. And the stadium is a very, very big part of if you like, the offer that the sport can make to the public of Great Britain.
Okay, Franco.
Franco Fava from Corriere dello Sport, Rome, Italy. Seb, let's talk a little bit about the competition start tomorrow. As we all know, after tomorrow will be the last race of Usain Bolt in 100 meters. What is your feeling after he will retire about the future of athletics? It will be an opportunity, or just to have your feeling about the end of his wonderful career?
Well,
thanks.
Franco, you won't be particularly surprised when I say I'm sad that he's going. You know, I'm an athletics fan. Take my, federation hat off. The guy has been a sensation. He's connected in a way that few in or out of their sport have connected. I can't think of somebody that's connected in that way really since Muhammad Ali. There's no discussion. There's no conjecture. He's the best sprinter of all time. The record books show that. But I think what we're going to miss, if I may say so, is not so much the fact that it's unlikely for the foreseeable future that somebody's going to win, 3 Olympic titles in a row, 100 and 200 relays, or a sack full of World Championships medals, or world records. It's just that the guy has a personality. You know, when we're sitting here with the slightly pre-packaged sports stars that have to look left or right to be able to even answer a question most of the time, and are nervous about it, he has a view, he has an opinion. He was very forthright about the future of our sport just 2 nights ago. And that's what we will miss. And that's what athletes are going to have to duplicate. And I think there's probably more pressure on us to make sure that we work alongside federations more closely, to make sure that they are also being helped to promote the stars of tomorrow, and in fact elevate those that are, you know, extraordinary competitors, but maybe not getting the airspace that they deserve. And that works both ways. So our programs around, you know, media training, our programs around making sure that we get them into the right environment, and that's not always in competition, to be able to explain to young people the smart, creative use of digital and social media, the way we bring new and fresh partners to the table that can help us with that journey. You know, it's all about retaining interest and relevance. And so, yeah, he's an extraordinary competitor, but the sport goes on. You know, if we'd been sitting here 15, 16 years ago, we'd have probably been having the same discussions about the imminent retirement of Michael Johnson or Jose Maria Carrec. So athletes came through. Muhammad Ali retired, great boxers came through. You didn't replace Ali, but the sport didn't suddenly die. So I'm very optimistic about the sport. And of course, he has committed to staying and helping us engage in all those areas. And those discussions will take place once these championships are out of the way.
Okay, yes, gentleman on the corner in the yellow t-shirt, then we'll come down to the front. Thank you.
Ben Davies from SNTV, question for Seb. So I think it was a few days ago, Bolt said, you know, after athletics, you might think about becoming a Hollywood actor. Now you said obviously you've made the leap from the track into athletics governance. Was there part of you sort of tempted to have a word in his ear and say, look, don't go over to Hollywood, athletics still wants you, and encourage him to stay and potentially be involved in the governance of athletics in the IAAF in the future?
No, actually, quite the opposite. I would encourage him to try and become a Hollywood actor, and I certainly wouldn't think that that's impossible, because that would then help us. That would give us yet another string to our bow in order to allow him to connect in a completely different environment. So no, I hope he does try that.
Okay, yes, gentleman over here, you're right.
My name is Ayodele Otumade, African Sports Monthly. My question is to Lord Coe. We've had the World Athletics Championships going around the world. In 2 years' time, we'll go to Doha, and 2 years after that, it will go to Eugene. My question for you is, when are we going to have the World Athletics Championships in an African country? And I'm not talking South Africa.
I think actually South Africa is an important destination for athletics. But no, look, I've actually started, I've had these conversations with the leadership of the CAA. And I have been on record as being committed to wanting to take more events and more championships to Africa. We've just come from Nairobi, from a spectacular under-18 championships, 160,000 people in the stadium over the last 3 sessions. And I was there with Olivier, our CEO. So we've had the World Cross Country Championships in Africa this year in Kampala. Diamond League has had its second iteration now in Morocco, in Rabat. So no, for a continent that has created such an extraordinary chapter in the history of our sport, and actually broadening away from the traditional endurance, middle distance, long distance, to having field eventers and sprinters coming through, it is of course an important destination, and I hope that we find a way of doing that. And South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, these are all, North Africa, Morocco, these all have a high potential.
Okay, one or two more questions, then we've got to go. So the gentleman at the back and then lady at the front.
Thank you. Hiroki Dora from Asahi Shimbun in Japan. Question to President Ko. I believe you guys are hosting men and women marathon at the same day. This is the first time. Could you please explain what the intentions are and your expectation too?
Well, I'll ask Olivier and then Ed to add to that.
Sorry? Okay,
No, okay, sorry.
Well, I'll make the first comment.
That's what it says.
Two things. First of all, it's a practical issue. It's incredibly expensive and hugely disruptive in a city the size of London to shut the roads for a whole day twice on successive weekends. You can imagine the logistics involved in what that does to the traffic system. And okay, it's a Sunday, it's a weekend, it's helpful in that regard, but to do it just for one Sunday and have the men's and women's race back to back earned us enormous favour with the city, and frankly it saves a lot of money as well. Secondly, however, as opposed to a big city marathon where you might have 30 or 40,000 members of the public running 26 miles with an elite race in front, as you know, the marathon field is relatively small, certainly a lot less than 40,000. Yes, we put it on a loop, but for a spectator opportunity, just for one men's race or one women's race, there isn't that much to see over the course of 2.5 hours. But if you can put them on back to back, we can create a sort of celebration of marathons, which I think the public will really respond to. We're going to get bigger crowds on the street as a result. We're doing exactly the same with the race walks. For the first time, all 3 race walks are on the same day. And yeah, we worked very hard with the IAAF for them to work through the logistical issues associated with that. Obviously, it denies a male walker a chance to double up in the 50 and the 20, or now a female walker in the 50 and the 20. But the general feeling was it would be better for the walks to showcase them as a particular strand of athletics and make more of them. So I hope, as a result of this, one big day of marathons, one big day of race walks, that we give a much better platform for those marathon runners and race walkers to show their best in front of a great crowd. But also logistically, as I said, it has huge advantages in a city the size of London with such a complex traffic network.
I just want to add that I'm very grateful to the team at the LOC, to Ed and Niels, of course, and their team, Cherry, for help working with us to organize this. But I'm also grateful to TBS, a big broadcast partner in Japan, who work with us to really work together on figuring out what worked for the fans at home back in Japan. And they have been very accommodating, and I think it's going to be a brilliant event that will have lots of people, as Ed just mentioned, along the path of both the marathon and the race walk, but also lots of people all around the world watching. So I'm quite excited by this.
Yes, you put your hand up, then they can catch you with the microphone. Yep.
Question to Seb Coe. You touched a bit on it, but why would you say, what has London got other cities haven't got to have the big Olympics and the great Olympics and stage great games, hopefully again now? And the other question is, we all assume Usain Bolt is going to win the 100 meters somehow. Is there a deal in the background that he lets the 200 go, so he gets the 100, someone else gets the 200?
I think anybody that knows Usain Bolt knows that that's probably not a deal that would stick for very long. What has London got? Well, I'm probably not going to be a particularly reliable witness, because I was born in this city and like Ed, spent a lot of my time in this city. It's a wonderful place. It's multicultural, it's diverse, it's creative, it's got cultural fluencies that so many cities would love. And it's a magnet for young people. It was really interesting when we were bidding. We did a small piece of research around the other cities that we were standing against. And if you simply posed a question to young people between the ages of 18 and 22 and said to them, if you're not going to, in the cities that we were campaigning against, if you are going to have a higher education component beyond your country, or you want to take your first steps in a career outside of your country, where would you go? Nearly 90% said London. And we were bidding against cities like New York and Paris. So I think London has everything. But of course, we do have a deep strain of understanding for track and field here. It's a, it's a city that has seen some of the, sadly, we've never really had the facilities to showcase our sport at championship level. That, well, rarely actually. So the Olympic Stadium is a very important part of that. But, if you think about some of the performances that British athletics fans have witnessed in this city, going back years to White City, the golden years at Crystal Palace, this is a city that has always embraced athletics.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you all, I hope, over the next 10 days. Oh, sorry, your other question was? Oh, God. Well, I thought you
No, I'm not aware of any deal, but then again, I probably wouldn't be.
And I know a lot of you want to get hold of Seb for interviews, and we will sort that out over the next couple of days. So thank you for your patience. It's been a long couple of days. Thank you. Bye.